What's up, everybody? Say everybody, the 3 people that are watching, welcome. It is TSP TV. It is Friday. I am recycling content from Saturday's stream that nobody watches, but so far even less people are watching than Saturday. So welcome to your least favorite YouTube channel, the channel nobody wants to watch. Welcome Becky, welcome Shawnee. Let me get rid of my cute little Pokemon thumbnail there. Welcome everyone. There I am, as I said, the least popular YouTuber you could imagine. Becky, no one near. We're up to 4 people watching now, so we've got 2 silent viewers. I'm almost certain no one's watching on Facebook, probably no one's watching on Twitch. Let me just find out. You're right, no one's watching. So it does say we are up to 5 people. My goodness, dizzying heights of 5. Welcome everybody. 6 now. It is the 2nd of November. This could indeed be the last day on earth if the Watchmen is anything to be gauged by in terms of fiction being decoded, but fingers crossed we do make it throughout the day until November the 3rd without any psychic alien staged events in New York City. So how are you all doing now? Look at that, we just jumped up to 6 folks. So sometimes I think Mondays are a little bit better than the weekends probably to go live, and then Saturday of course was a once in a blue moon occasion. Literally it was Halloween on a Saturday in a blue moon. The blue moon was drawing a lot of attention in chat and talk on Saturday night, and I guess a lot of people may or may not have had some Halloween plans, so perhaps not the best of nights to choose to go live in the grand scale of things. But the reason being I was kind of a little bit bored, stuck for something to do, was going to probably end up scratching my ass for some amount of time while I tried to decide if I wanted to watch this or wanted to watch that, or if I wanted to eat or if I wanted to do YouTube. So anyway, jumped into a live stream that was kind of one of those little bit of ups and downs, had some highlights, had some down points, had a little bit of brain fartage, but in the end we only had 4 people watching. So what I figured, you know what, maybe let's scrap that stream, delete it, refresh it, reboot it. Maybe we'll attract a few more people on a Monday night, because I do know a couple of you have mentioned in the past that Mondays do tend to work out a little bit better for you in terms of being able to tune in to TSP TV, the channel nobody wants to watch. Maybe that might start being my new little opening catchphrase. As once upon a time I used to open welcome to another video that nobody's gonna watch in my early career of a YouTuber nearly 2 years ago. In fact, November is this November, actually we are in November now, November the 29th will mark the 2nd anniversary of TSP TV, and I almost sort of think back to this time last year when I was getting ready for the 1-year anniversary. I was getting a little bit excited, trying to put some plans together. We had the pantry expansion, bought an extra unit, all these things in kind of where we were going to be going in the next year, and here we are nearly a year on, almost literally a year on, not quite to the day, but we are in the month of November. So this is sort of, maybe we could start some anniversary type celebrations throughout this month. But as I said, things in terms of view wise and popularity, and not saying we're trying to go viral, but we do seem to be on an inclining as well, you know, sort of over the covidian era and the fact that I did lose my day job. So I thought to myself, you know what, let's try and, although this isn't exactly a job, try and make a little bit of efforts and improvements, sort of teach myself a few new skills in terms of editing and making and creating things like intros and putting together presentations. And it sort of seems for all my efforts in endurances over this summer hasn't really made an awful lot of difference in the grander scale of things, and maybe I should have just stuck to the prepper hands and unbagging ramen, beans and other such supplementary items from the dollar store. But anyway, I do have a little bit of a mind, an inquisitive nature, and a thirst for knowledge and a hunger for understanding in some of that information and research and stuff, thoughts and opinions I do like to try and share with a few of my fellow Thrift Fam members, that we seem to be getting smaller and smaller, a little bit like the Titanic in the sinking ship. Some of us are like the guys playing the violin, keep calm and carry on. So I'm glad you had a great day on Halloween. Did any of you other guys have any plans? Who else is here? We've still got 7 people watching, but nobody's saying hello. So maybe we should try the tried and trusted old trick of maybe we should wrap this up at the 10-minute mark and quit while we're ahead, before further disappointment eventually does arrive. But as I said, guys, I have been a little bit down in the dumps. Not going to keep licking my wounds, feeling sorry for myself, not looking for sympathy. And sometimes, in order to just sort of break the monotony and the boredom of being stuck in a rut of self-loathing and self-sympathy, I thought, you know what, let's press play, have a little chat with whoever tunes in. And again, we've gone down from 7 to 5, so the opposite of the effect, the gusset effect, doesn't seem to work, baby P. So as I said, before I do start diving into anything or going into any conference, we will sort of see if we can attract a couple more people. If anybody does want to say hello who is watching in the chat, there is 5, but only 2 I can see are talking. As I said, we might abandon ship before we go too farther with this stream, and maybe I will just put my pajamas on and get into bed again, which is what I was kind of want to do before I press play. Sorry, I'm already having brain farts as it is. But did any of you guys, Becky Pamplon, I know you were very, very busy over the weekend. I'm glad you are here as well, because we were going to talk, or my intentions were to kind of talk a little bit about the covidcon scam pandemic, but we are seeing a little bit of a rise in numbers, and in particular baby P, who is a medical employee. She works in a hospital. She's beginning to see a little bit of a rise in numbers of people that are coming into our hospitals with symptoms of COVID-19, and is getting a little bit overwhelmed, and people are being airlifted to other facilities by all accounts, and they are making overflows for the amount of victims. So what is there? Sorry, I just caught that. Is there anything to be made of this? Is this a manipulation of figures? And as you said, baby P's seen a lot of rise, but back in the early days of this pandemic, you were still working in your hospital and weren't really seeing any evidence of it, as well as Almel, who also works in the medical trade. Where is Almel? I wonder where she is. But she said similar thing, that she wasn't really seeing anything that was matching what we're seeing on the TV screens. But all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, hey Prepper Chicks, you've seen quite a rise in people. We do know also, if she's not watching, Martha, if she's hello wherever you may be, her husband was diagnosed and they've been forced to separate within their household. So I'm a little, hey JBG, you just snuck in the back door of the thrift store, which is always the best door to go in if you ever went to nightclubs or waited in line for cute cool bars. If you really were in the then it was usually the back door that someone would let you in, and maybe the back room would always be the best room to be in, not the main dance floor, because the back room is usually where all sorts of debauchery and shenanigans were going on. But anyway, we're up to 8 folks now. I will be putting out, hello bohos, I have new info that I will be putting on my channel tomorrow. I guess that means tomorrow. That's interesting, and want to give us a little bit of an inkling as to what that new information might be about. Anything we should worry about or concern ourselves, or can it really wait till tomorrow? I don't know, but as I said, we are seeing a little bit of a rise in the numbers. Certainly here in Ontario, I've noticed a little bit. I mean, I don't pay attention to news or mainstream anything, but you do catch a little bit on hello Nancy, welcome. Hashtag Shah to you. Nice to see you. Not been blown away. The election and Biden. Okay, well, that's good. The election, that's obviously going on tomorrow. The WrestleMania Jerry Springer show that I like to think of it as, but some people do like to think that maybe their vote doesn't make a difference, although I'm not one of those. But anyway, yeah, sorry, that was what I was going to go back to. Now, that was what I was going to sort of Becky, and sometimes not directly, but Shawnee is a little bit directed, because Shawnee, you work for a company that makes ventilators, and by all accounts throughout the summer you've been a little bit busy doing that, right? Building ventilators at your maybe you've built enough. And I'm guessing you work for a big medical company. I used to work for a company called Becton Dickinson. I don't know if you've heard of those, Shawnee, because they are part of a big conglomerate pharmaceutical industry, and they used to make medical devices, not medical products as in terms of like medication and drugs and stuff, but they used to make like syringes and devices and catheters and all that kind of stuff that is needed to sort of stuck into the machinery, or the machinery itself, you know, things that you put on your head. So I'm not sure if not you've heard of them, but you're being made redundant now. Is that because, as I said, they've made enough ventilators, or is that because they're sort of closing you down? Is some kind of lockdown restrictions in order to kind of, you know, flatten the curve, as we were told all those months ago? And we are up to 10 folks now. Great stuff. Double digits. Mondays usually are probably a little bit better than that. But as I said, if we can cast our mind back almost 8 months ago, many of us were tuning in. We were watching live when we heard that Donald Trump, the POTUS, was about to make an announcement to the world, and that announcement was that we were going in lockdown and there were going to be emergency measures put into place, and we needed a couple of weeks in order to try and flatten the curve. And here we are, 8 months into that 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And up until recently, we really haven't seen any sort of contrasting evidence to support the narrative that we are being force-fed. Well, I kind of said it was a hoax from the start, as many people did. I'm not saying I was alone in that. Many people did think that it was, it was a psychological operation. It is a false flag, and I still do believe. Sorry, I've got something hanging on my eye. I don't know if it's on my hat or if I've got an eyelash thing in, but that was a little bit what the kind of theme and content behind covidcon Go, augmented reality, real life role play, was all a little bit about. Are we being programmed to play the parts of a real life role play, and seeing how in fact we will indeed react to a pandemic without actually implementing the pandemic? And a piece of fiction I decoded recently was Utopia, in which a bunch of comic book nerds, a little bit like myself perhaps, somehow believed that hidden within their favorite comic book was a coded message and a decrypted bunch of clues that unraveled the greater mystery. And the greater mystery was a depopulation agenda, and the fact that this large pharmaceutical company that was part of the New World Order militarized industrial complex was carrying out a false flag psychological event in terms of a fake virus. And there was a first wave and a second wave. Now, during the first wave of this particular fictitious pandemic, there was no virus. They said, you know, if you can create the fear, then you don't really need the virus, and just creating the fear is enough to kind of generate enough to kind of maybe get people to want to get vaccinated. Now, the vaccine within Utopia wasn't actually a vaccine at all. No, it was just a device in order to supplement a protein that would render the human reproductive system useless for the next 3 generations. So that would really do an awful lot to cull population, and that is because okay, go answer the phone, Bohos. Are you a newbie, or are you somebody that has visited before with a different name? But yeah, Utopia is a very crazy show, and as I said, I kind of put a fiction decoded episode within 36 hours of that show being released. Now, what is also a little bit interesting, if you don't know, that Utopia, the recent Utopia, is in fact a reboot, and it was a 2013 British series that ran for 2 seasons, and the second season of Utopia, OMG, if you thought the first one was crazy, the second one gets, fuck me, we're all doomed if fiction is to prepare us for our reality in that case. Now, over the recent weeks as well, I was all kind of claiming that maybe this has been a big hoax. I've been trying to pay attention to what's been going on in the world as opposed to what they're telling us is going in the world, to try and understand what really is going on in the world. And I'm under the impression and under the belief that there is a lot of electromagnetic mind control going on, and using Monarch and MK Ultra programming methods that they've managed to kind of compartmentalize in condense input into software within your cell phone and other smart technology. This is how the role play is being manipulated, that people's minds are being controlled, or maybe subliminally they're being given messages on their news feed to go out and behave in certain ways, and have people been kind of programmed to maybe support BLM or Antifa or anti-lockdowns, or Manchurian Karens being programmed to react angrily. They get triggered when they see certain triggers within their daily routine that makes them behave Karen-like, and I suspect strongly this really is the case. In particular, I did witness over the summer a BLM protest here in Toronto that had quite a large amount of people, maybe 2,000-3,000 people turned up one day at the Queen's Park down in downtown Toronto here, where I was out and about a few times recording the lockdown protests over the summer. But the BLM protest was a very I don't know, it's very surreal to experience it firsthand and be there. There's kind of like a hive mind mentality in the mantra. It's like watching a cult, and they all were kneeling down in no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. And the other thing that was very bizarre was the amount of kind of white people. I'm not saying it's wrong for white people to be at Black Lives Matter protests, but it just sort of how many struggles have they had in comparison to what BLM is supposedly saying that they are. I'm not saying BLM's right, I'm not saying they're wrong, but it does seem to me, and in my opinion, like it is the equivalent of a black Ku Klux Klan. And I also have some black friends that would agree with me on that. We've actually spoken to a few of them over the summer. But anyway, is this a result of mind control, and is this being played out as some part of real life drill? In one of the early videos I put out since the pandemic was announced, that is this a drill gone live, which is often the case in many false flag events, that drills, there are people that they put all these places, FEMA, for example, were in place on September the 11th, carrying out a supposed drill, and then lucky enough that they were there with their triage centers when the unknown Islamic radicalized terrorists armed with box cutter and limited flight knowledge managed to single-handedly navigate planes beyond their physical capabilities and break not just that physical impossibility, but several other physical impossibilities in order to bring down the buildings. But anyway, do we still have anybody paying attention? I'm not getting any comments. Maybe you've got a little bit delay, and I did see something somewhere on Facebook that maybe you've got a hissing sound going. Again, guys, I don't really have much control over sound issues, and some of you may or may not have noticed over the summer I have had quite a lot of issues with sound. And a couple of you mentioned that you watched the stream on Facebook, so we were having some glitches on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and the sound was crystal clear on Facebook, whereas on YouTube it wasn't so good. And I do believe that this is part of a censorship, and you've heard the expression silencing the truth. But living within an augmented reality, as I said, up until this point, nobody's really knows anybody that is contracted the virus. Nobody's had any family members that seems to have had the symptoms. And certainly hospitals that I've observed, and I live very close to one, don't see or haven't seemed to have any kind of real evidence that this pandemic is happening until now. And Becky P, as she said, this weekend her emergency ward become overflowing, and they're talking about setting up another, opening up another ward as an emergency overflow, and other stuff that I've been hearing in recent weeks, which is again something I did put a video out very early on, was the fact that they are there are protocols and legislation in place for COVID quarantine camps. Now, let me just give a little kind of example here for you, that with terms of creating controlled opposition and giving an enemy something. Let's put it, for example, like the lockdown protest, that these are people that are out kind of like maybe some of us here that don't believe necessarily that the COVID-19 pandemic is legitimate, and we think it is indeed a hoax, and some of us think that it is an excuse to remove freedoms and implement more tyrannical, draconian, Orwellian surveillance, tracking and traceability measures into government and society. But for those that believe that the virus is real, these become the enemy. These become people that could potentially be spreading the virus. Now, the other thing that is very, very interested in all of this, that the people who don't wear masks are probably less likely to go to the hospitals and get mandatory or voluntarily tested for this, but many people are lining up here. Just around the corner there's a hospital for me. A couple of times I have been out and about and got some fresh air. I've seen the lineup waiting, and it's been in the hundreds, but they're all mask wearers. So these are the people that probably wore masks in and about their daily routines since the start of this, because that's what they were told, and now they're like, maybe you should go and get tested. And these are the people now that are suddenly contracting the virus and making up the numbers. So if they told us to wear a mask, but it's only maskers that are going to kind of get tested and are supplying these statistics, then what does that say about the information that we were given in order to protect ourselves? Seems to me that that wasn't very, very good information to be passing on at all, if the people that are now making the numbers up are people that wear a mask. But back to the people that do believe that it's real and do wear masks and are a little bit afraid and wear gloves, hand sanitizer 6 feet apart, social isolating that. People who go out in masks and congregate and don't socially distance and don't wear masks and such forth might be seen as the carriers and spreaders of this device. So let's imagine that one day in the not so distant future they decided that anybody that that sooner or later it's getting so bad that they can just spot test you, or maybe if you want to go into Walmart they have to dab you. You want to go and get Starbucks, they have to dab you. We've already seen over the summer that some stores require a temperature test. People that are just, I'm not saying anything derogatory to people who work in like retail, but you go to the Nordstrom here in the Eaton Centre, where there's some sort of jumped up hipster in a fancy outfit in expensive clothes with a thermometer. He's not a medical assistant, he's not a medical expert, he has no medical training, he's just a retail employee that all of a sudden is being given a thermometer and he's being told to take your temperature. But what in the not so distant future, if the trend of the rise, the numbers that we're seeing now begins to rise and people are actually suddenly overfilling in hospitals, what if they say, okay, we're gonna have to spot check you? What if they spot check you? Oh my God, we've got to drag you off and take you to a quarantine camp that could indeed become a concentration camp. Now, another interesting piece of fiction that I watched recently that came out in 2019, way before Wuhan or way before any of this, was a show from the BBC called Years and Years. And I did just put a fiction decoded episode up for you all not to watch just a couple of days ago. But it's very interesting because it kind of takes place between 2020, excuse me, there's some burps brewing for your baby pee, but it takes place between 2019 and 2032, so the next sort of 12 or 13 years. And in particular, it leads us into the year 2030. Now, although it doesn't start off, and although it isn't the main feature or factor of this particular story, at some point in this TV series over the next 10 years, they had an outbreak of monkey flu, and this kind of depicted social distancing and all that kind of quarantine stuff. And they had refugee camps that weren't just housing refugees from overseas, they were housing refugees from within the United Kingdom that become homeless, or refugees as a result to bad weather that could have been modified, and other kind of stuff to do with like nuclear fallout and such forth. But there's a lot of people that are homeless, refugees out on the streets, that end up within these concentration camps that then the government sticks the virus into that then starts to kill people within them. So it's kind of like a controlled pandemic within the quarantine, but the deaths within the quarantine camps add the fear to society. Not only do they have quarantine camps, they start building walls around neighborhoods, and they target, depending on the rates of crime that are in that neighborhood, you can be a red zone, an orange zone, or a green zone. If you're in a red zone, you can't leave or enter. Right? If you're in an orange zone, you have limited resets. Green zones, anyone. Again, this is fiction, but this was depicted just before this all happened, and we've already heard that there is talk of quarantine camps here in Ontario. They do have legislation passed in government that they can remove your children from school if they test positive to a COVID thing. Continuum, I've heard of that show but don't think I have watched it. But the other thing that is very interesting, that a lot of this kind of fiction, utopia, years after years, and there's another one I'm going to tell you about in a second that is even more whoa when you hear about what this show's all about in comparison to me and what I've been talking about. And you know, there was a lot of similarities within utopia about comic book fans. I'm a comic book fan, I'm a geek. That's how I spent a lot of my life until I left the United Kingdom, and I kind of give up that life for good and just become a little bit of a nomadic vagabond without too much of a plan or a hope or a pot to piss in, for that matter. But it appealed to me because a lot of it was about people decoding fiction in terms of reality and governmental conspiracies that sort of did actually come to be true. But a lot of these shows over the pandemic time have an awful lot of similar themes with them, and another one I know Becky Pamplin watched that we both enjoyed but for kind of different reasons was Upload, in which it taught about people being digitally uploaded into a virtual world just before they die, and thus kind of living forever. Now, a show that just came out on Friday the 30th of October, there's a couple of shows that were released for the Halloween weekend, and in particular this one was of interest to me. It's called The Truth Seekers, and wait till you get this, guys. Yeah, Under the Dome, I watched the first 2 seasons of that. I don't know why I never got around to watching the 3rd season, but I'm going to try and go back to this because I'm kind of paying attention to some of these fictions and trying to see if there's anything that we can decode in regards to today's real life role play that we're under in. And you know, fiction prepares us for reality, and if the government have all the abilities to kind of implement these fictitious scenarios within reality and make us believe that they're real, then this is in fact augmented reality. Am I right or am I wrong? But this TV show that came out on Friday was called Truth Seekers, and it is on Amazon, not Netflix, on the Amazon Studio app. And it is about a cable stroke internet installer that works for a company that has to maintain a 100% coverage over the United Kingdom. Not only that, this individual, when he isn't being an installer of cable television and internet kind of equipment, he has a shit video, a shit YouTube channel, should I say. I was going to say shit video productions, but he has a shit YouTube channel that absolutely nobody watches called Truth Seekers TV, TSTV, and somehow he's a paranormal activity kind of guy. He looks for ghosts and supernatural occurrences. He's not kind of like me, but TSTV, YouTube shit channel, 10 people watch his live shows. Similarities right there. But anyway, he kind of somehow within this fiction stumbles onto a conspiracy, get this, that involves electromagnetic frequencies, mind control, and satellite TV, Wi-Fi signals, VHS recorders, and portals to the supernatural realms like ghosts and stuff for that. And it also has a digital afterlife featured, TSTV fiction. Can't even begin to tell you how, like, you know, it was like, what's going on here? Are they kind of somehow mimicking my life? And I'm not sure if anybody that just heard what I had to say, that there was a fictitious show about a YouTuber called TSTV that investigates electromagnetic mind control. What have I been talking about for the last month or so on this channel, guys? Kali Ninja in the house. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And it's a very quirky, interesting little show. Very much necromancy. That's something very also. Hello, Sherry Sharebear over on Facebook. In the show Not Dances with Wolves, Raised by Wolves, which also come out during the pandemic. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of this stuff that's coming out in the pandemic era is rich and filled with monarch programming symbology, MK Ultra tactics, as well as a lot of predictive programmatics. So yeah, please watch it, Becky, and tell me if there aren't any similarities. He even kind of has a couple of little people that help him out with his YouTube channel. Funny enough, when he's got his own little wrenches, so to speak. But is the stuff that's been, and bearing in mind we've all been isolated, quarantined, socially distanced, and all this kind of shit, which would be the prime sort of thing to brainwash an individual. This is how governmental agencies do carry out brainwashing. They isolate an individual, take him away from everything that is comfortable and familiar to him, and then feed him a lot of repetition and a lot of programming. But back to Raised by Wolves. It's set in the sort of kind of distant future, 100 or so years from now, and it is about a human civil war. The world kind of comes to an end. Humanity kind of builds a big spaceship, and they go off to try and find another planet to live on, or they do find another planet to live on, which is light years away. But they also send a couple of artificial intelligent robots, a female version and a male version, called Mother and Father. But the female version, she can kind of transform into a necromancer, and she can kill humans with a sonic pitch. And a necromancer was something else I heard in another TV show or movie that was again about supernatural kind of activity, paranormal, like those kind of ghost hunter type show. Is a bit similar to that, where these group of individuals got sent to the most haunted house in Mexico, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things going on there, but they mentioned necromancers as well, and necromancer is not exactly a very common word. I'm not even sure exactly what a necromancer is, but it's something that kind of delivers death, I believe, a death bringer sort of thing. But anyway, it is one of those kind of, are they, why we've been locked down and we've been living in this augmented reality, because there is up until now, there's been no real evidence of a pandemic whatsoever, but people have been living as though there is a pandemic, if you see what I'm saying here. And has this been a big period of time in order to kind of segregate, put into little pockets and groups, like little Nancy was saying there about Under the Dome? And if you can kind of remember, they put those little social distancing circles out where you could only have 10 people. We went out and about over the summer, and we went to one of the parks here in Toronto that had the social distance circles where you could only have 10 people in that circle. Was it 6? I can't remember, but never mind. So let's imagine that you sat in that circle and all your electronic devices connected without your knowing, because they can do that. They do have the ability to interact and connect with each other. And when you're within that 10-foot little circle with all your buddies, that they emit frequencies into your mind that creates a hive mind, implants the same thoughts in it. And the other thing that is very evident, we have to stand 6 feet apart. Well, our phones kind of have a 6 feet radius for EMF frequencies, and stuff like that brings spirits back to life. Okay, that's what a necromancer does, but in this kind of the dance wall, she kills people, but at the same time she does give life. This is an artificial intelligent robot that gives life to human embryos artificially. Very, very, very bizarre. Somebody got the name wrong, Pepper Chick. That's all right. Martha, we were just talking about you, my darling. I'm glad you turned up, because we're talking a little bit about, up until recently, we've seen absolutely no evidence of COVID, and now all of a sudden it's everywhere. Poor Becky's run off her feet at work with COVID victims, and your husband was diagnosed with COVID just the other day. I caught on Facebook. Hope he's doing okay. But maybe you could give us a little kind of, what sort of symptoms has he got? Is he kind of, please forget, I'm not saying this to be unkind, is he showing signs of being on death's door? Or is he just right as rain, normal as can be, just maybe has a little bit of sniffles and colds, and I really hope that he's not showing any sort of drastic symptoms or anything, that he's getting over it. So he hasn't really been like knocking on death's door, so to speak, and touch wood that's not the case. But I'm just inquisitive here. He has a small cough and a lot of aches. Now, again, guys, within some of these electromagnetic frequency mind control videos that I've been putting up recently, a couple of times I've mentioned that the symptoms of EMFs, overexposure to EMFs and these frequencies, fever, aches, pains, toothache, headache, cold-like symptoms, are identical to that of what they're telling you is the COVID-19 symptoms. So can they create the symptoms electronically, is what I'm saying, rather than actually have a pathogen-based virus that they've emitted into the sky. Now, something else that we were chatting about the other day with regards to EMF, in ShareBear mentioned about the nanotechnology. Now, I don't necessarily understand nanotechnology in its fullest, but I understand that it exists, and from what I'm aware, that if you kind of wanted, you would have to inject it into the bloodstream or kind of connect it in the rear part of the brain and sort of as a neurolink. I'm not sure if you had an airborne, if you spread nanotechnology airborne, that you would be able to ingest it via breathing it in. Do you know what I'm saying? I think it kind of has to be put in your system, but I don't know that for a fact. And ShareBear mentioned about all the kind of nanoparticles that they are spraying at the minute. I kind of have reason to believe this is kind of being sprayed maybe for atmospherics, and also to possibly make the air around us transmitting, right? The nanoparticles may just hang and float in the air and just be able to sort of kind of keep the signals from going. And the other kind of thing with kind of an airborne, and bearing in mind when they stream a lot higher altitude than they do, the commercial aircraft fly. They're sort of like 50,000-60,000 feet, where most commercial aircraft fly around 30-35. But if you distributed something, and even if you had 1 billion little nanobots in it, that height, you distributed it and you were hoping to deliver it airborne, it would kind of, those billion nanobots, only a very small amount of them might actually make their target, because it go all over the place. If that makes any thing, well, that would be technological warfare, Shelley. If it was nanobites, and this is what I'm saying, could they simulate a biological warfare? But could they do that with technology? Could your phone be able to transmit and emit all the frequencies required? Sorry, I got a little bit of spit stuck on my lip there. But could it transmit all the symptoms of COVID within you? And then maybe if you went to a hospital where they had, like here in Toronto or in Canada, we have Tim Hortons. I'm sure you guys may or may not have heard that south of the border, but it's like a kind of coffee donut stop sort of place. But once a year, or a couple of times a year, they have this kind of little sort of not pandemic list, like promotion, where you roll the cup up and there are prizes underneath, but they have kind of like, a stack of cups, and out of 100 cups, maybe 20 of them are winners. What I'm saying is, let's say if you go to the hospital and they've given you all these testing kits, but what if they're predetermined with results, and like every third person you test is going to come up as a positive, in order to kind of generate and create the image of a pandemic, and then using technology in order to deliver the symptoms, if any of this is making any sense. Welcome, Stone Cold Killer. Glad to see you here. Did we have Devils speak? Yeah, Devil Speak. Glad to see you. I noticed a couple of people did come in over there. So Martha, you were worried about your husband, but he seems to getting better and better. And this is a good thing, because if Martha's husband is getting better, then maybe everyone will get better. And something that Becky did point out to us in the admin group chat, that a lot of her subjects, or not subjects, patients rather, that are coming into her hospital seem to be of an older age. Now, it can be done with, exactly, this is what I'm talking, all this technology exists, and all this stuff is what I've been telling you about over the last few months, and trying to piece this is what I'm saying, you know, I've been trying to piece all the parts of the puzzle together to try and create the picture of what is actually going on. And it seems to me, the weed. Now, in one of the electromagnetic videos that I put out, there was an individual that was talking about the dangers of it, but he said that there are certain drugs and substances that you can take that will protect you from this. But all of this technology exists, and why would they go to the trouble of researching, experimenting, billions and billions and billions of dollars spent on this technology if they ain't going to use it? And let's say that you did want to take over the world and you wanted to depopulate a bunch of people, probably contaminating it wouldn't be the best thing. So if you did a nuclear war, there would be radiation. If you unleashed a biological warfare, you know, in terms of a virus, then even if it killed people, the air and the contamination would still be there afterwards. Although, you know, you could burn in coal, but it would be sort of contaminated lands. Now, with regards to, again, what I was talking about earlier with the quarantine camps, that believe it or believe it not, it wasn't the National Socialists that devised and come up with concentration camps. Oh, no. It was the good old British Empire. In fact, it was Lord Kitchener back in the 1800s, before the First World War, when the British Empire was involved in, or Great Britain rather, was involved in conflict in South Africa amongst the Boers. And the Boers were mostly Belgium and Dutch. You may have heard of the Belgian Congo, but back in the 1800s, the Boers were mostly Dutch and Belgians that colonized part of South Africa, mainly because that part of South Africa was rich with diamonds and gold, and back then the pound and a lot of currencies were still backed by precious metals, and like they are today, we have a fiat currency. It's backed by absolutely nothing. They print money out of thin air and then create debt that we are then in order to repay. But during the Boer War, the might of the British Empire is a little bit like Vietnam in some respects, because the Boers and the sort of insurgents in that part of the world were kind of using guerrilla warfare tactics, and were very kind of militia, tribal, and kind of just using their knowledge of the terrain in order to kind of hamper the advancements of the British Empire. So what the British Empire did, rather than go to war against the guerrillas that they couldn't really fight or sort of fish out, a little bit like the Taliban hiding up in mountains and stuff like that, what they did is they started rounding up not only the farmers in the land that were kind of helping these sort of insurgents out by providing them with supplies, they also rounded up all the people that lived in the townships and villages in there, be they white, black, whatever, and they put them into concentration camps. And then, in order to kind of allow for some kind of natural selection to take its course, they implemented and introduced influenza to the camps, and eventually, due to malnutrition and disease, the people in the camps just died away. Now, the Boers were actually wiped out, genocide, at the hands of the British Empire. The Boer Empire, or the Boer, is just gone. They've gone. They were wiped out completely. And, you know, could this be something now that maybe within cities, towns, counties, states, they electronically control the virus using electronic frequencies that simulate exactly the same symptoms as a virus, but people that get taken off to camps then somehow get injected, or they have an airborne virus that will do the job of natural selection for us. So these are things that have been used by governments in the past on unsuspecting citizens. If they've done it once, was saying they wouldn't do it again. Welcome, Fatty. You've popped in. Now, the good news is, as we said, that Martha's husband got well. Baby P, if you're still watching alive and welcome wherever you are, you were on Facebook a second ago, popping around the various ones. Have you lost anyone at the hospital to this? Have they been sort of, you know, body bags and things like that they were telling us all about? Remember when they were saying in New York they were having to use like sort of butcher, like what the butchers use, those big trailers that are refrigerated. You're on both. Well, look at you multitasking. Is it better on Facebook or worse on there? But you have had some victims, huh? Now, did any of those have any, I mean, obviously medical records are kind of a little bit personal, but do you know if there were any underlying effects of, you know, did they have anything else that could have contributed to them maybe passing, or was it solely they died of COVID? Ninja, I have pain mix, but I have RX. Oh, that's for your, yeah, you had to have some injections the other day, prepper chick, and it's a shame that they don't have CBD. You can't use CBD oil in Texas. We don't have pile of bodies back, but yeah, I can't read that. What does that say? Comorbidites. Sorry. But something that is a little bit strange, or something that I've, mostly old folks, so this is what I'm saying, is this part of removing generation by generation. We talk about, or a film I've talked about a lot, not as much as Soylent Green, but quite a lot, would be Logan's Run. And in Logan's Run, again, they live under a dome, a little bit like Under the Dome, the Stephen King story that was serialized for TV not so long ago. But in Logan's Run, people aren't allowed to live over 30, and again, they have the little chip in their pan, in their hand, that starts to flash when they're 29. And again, they live within a very hedonistic, very sort of free environment, but it's not free. It's like the illusion of freedom. They think everything's good and everything's rosy, and are told, don't go outside of the dome, don't go outside of the dome, everything's dangerous out there, you're gonna die, it's contaminated, everything's good in here, don't leave the dome. But it is very much about population control. No one is allowed to breed naturally anymore. All babies and people are birthed in laboratories according to, you know, they have lots of colors, which is very similar to a Brave New World. So people are talking about vitamin, and that was something that we were told that we weren't, you know, remember YouTube was banning people for talking about that and blocking videos for taking vitamin C and vitamin B. But I've experienced some very, very bizarre symptoms, and especially when I'm around my cellular devices, in particular this one. Now, this is the kind of phone I use as my main phone, but it's a dual phone. I got a lot of TSP stuff on there as well as my personal stuff. Whenever I'm around this phone, I get whistling in my ears, my head seems to ache, I get a pain in my neck, and I've also experienced like toothache. My teeth hurt. Now, when I don't use that phone, I keep it in this Mylar bag. Whoops, sorry, I just done something now. Like that. And at night I turn it off, and I make sure that I keep it at least 8 feet away. I don't have it by the bed or anywhere near where I am sleeping. The phone that I'm using to record off of now doesn't seem to be bad, but a couple of times, like, I felt the whistling in my ears. Like, I always have a ringing in my ears, never ever ceases to stop. And a couple of times it's got louder and louder and louder. A few times I've actually thought I'm not going to be very far off getting, yeah, I do get the ringing. It's ringing right now, Sherry. And something I'm going to bring out in a second in regards to sort of electromagnetic frequencies and stuff like that. But I've also felt like heart pain, chest pains, stuff like this. Well, 5G, I mean, this is my theory, that going back to sort of the stuff that I researched from the 80s, at the dawn of first generation technology, I actually believe that FG or 5G means that this is the 5th generation of people that have grown up or been part of the digital age, and maybe this is the 5th generation of programming that is coming into order. And again, I kind of have a little bit of a theory with the 7 seals, and there's also some stuff that within sort of communist takeovers, there's usually a sort of 20-year process. It's not something that happens overnight. And there are sort of 7 stages of implementation within that 20 years as to where they get to the final destination. Sherry can actually hear people talking. I've heard my grandmother's voice, like, a couple of times, and something we've heard in something I was talking to Becky P about not so long ago was being on the same wavelength. You've all heard that expression, oh, you know, you and I, we're on the same wavelength. Well, what exactly, what if we are on the wavelength, the same way? What if they're pumping the same implications and thoughts into our minds as you and I, if you see what I'm saying? No one ever comments on Facebook, Prepper Chick. I don't think people really do watch it, and I think it's maybe to do with sort of privacy settings or something. I might have it for friends only. But I think the majority of people that do watch do come over to sort of YouTube, just even if they start out on Facebook, they kind of come over here. Just because the group's there. But I've got ringing on my eye and thought it was old. No, I believe this is the frequency. Now back to that stuff that I was looking at in the 1980s. The Walkmans were weaponized, tape decks, stuff like that, you know. Hang on a second, let me see if I can do this for you. Actually, no, we've got a problem there. Hold on. I was going to bring up, I've got the video that I was going to upload, that I've already uploaded a couple of times and featured in some of my videos, about how they conducted a mind control experiment by hooking this lady up with these 2 diodes on her head, and once they were on her head, then her brain completed the circuit, and then once the circuit was completed, she was then surrounded in an EMF bubble that then the guy with the computer next to her can tell her how to think, what to behave, and what things can move. I've stopped having birthdays, me too, but we've all been having ringing in our ears. I've always done that. And I do believe that not only was the Walkman a weapon and a device to control the minds, because in the 80s we all started to put headphones on. We also started to wear digital watches, if you remember, and digital watches can emit a little tiny pulse and frequency. And tapes, and in particular the Dolby sound system, DSS, still used to this day, I believe, is a weapon. And the whistling was part of the mind disruption. And very, very funny enough that I did put together what I'm trying to call the director's cut of Together in Electric Dreams, where I put together an entire 4-hour montage of stuff that I collected from VHS archives from the 1980s, and in particular 1985, and every single one of them has a fuzzy whistle. And if any of you guys can kind of remember back to the days when you did have a Walkman and you put it on, even though you had the Dolby system, there was always a in the background, right? And Sherry's had ear surgeries. Now, concerts as well, when you went to a concert or a nightclub, that was when, like, a couple of days afterwards, when I used to go to the raves, I was still ringing in there. But there you go, who's getting old? Anyone dreaming about losing their teeth? Yes, not recently, but I've always had teeth dreams and nightmares about my teeth falling out. So things I do at night to try and combat, I have white noise. I have a little kind of space heater by my bed that I kind of put on just to kind of also keep me cool while I'm asleep. Do get a little bit hot under the covers sometimes. But white noise is something that is supposed to help. So I do... yeah, no, that's the thing. If you want to find out if something's real, look up the patent list, and there is so much mind control technology available. And it's not a secret, people. It's not secret. This isn't tinfoil hat basement dwelling truther conspiracy shit, making stuff up for clickbait. This is real. But anyway, yeah, that is a good point. But I've been dreaming a lot about my ex. Nothing good. He was an abuser. Nothing. Now that's very interesting, Prepper Chick, because monarch programming depends greatly. Like people who have had a little bit of abuse in their life, are somewhat more subject to mind control programming. And again, something I mentioned before, did Atari program our dreams? And again, Atari consoles were very, very popular back then. But are our dreams being controlled? They know, can cellular device is another thing I want to get to at the moment. Can they read their minds? Because the other day I had a soak in the bath. Something I don't do very often is take a soak in the tub, but I was very cold, achy, very stiff, just had a bad neck and all stuff like this. Thought, you know what, maybe a nice soak in the tub, hot waters, will loosen me up. And another thing that I kind of do quite a lot when I do get a little bit of these sort of whistling in the ears and the headaches get bad, is take a shower, because I think water will ground you, and running water will act as a deterrent to electromagnetic frequencies. But I was having this soak in the bath, and I kind of put my head underneath and let the ears kind of clean out. Afterwards, when I cleaned my ears, this sounds disgusting, I'm almost like embarrassed to admit it, but the blackest of blackest shit come out of my ear. Like, what the fuck is that out of both ears? And I was a little bit disturbed about it, to be quite honest, and I sort of didn't really know if it was healthy or not, but I just kind of figured maybe, I've been out and about in the city or whatnot, but it didn't look like earwax. It was really kind of thick, black, disgusting stuff. And I never ever spoke about this to anybody. I didn't talk about anyone. I didn't even text anybody about it. I've kind of been a little bit isolated in my own sort of self-pity bubble lately. But a couple of ads popped up onto my phone about earwax removal, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we've all kind of had that experience where maybe we've been speaking about something or been texting somebody about something, and all of a sudden that features within our newsfeed is a targeted ad, and that's because the phones do listen and take a lot of our data in order to target content for us. It's going to keep us engaged with our phones. But as I said, are they reading our minds now, and are they able to manipulate your dreams? People dreaming about, I just talked about ringing in our ears. At least 4 or 5 of you have come up and said, yeah, I've always got ringing in my ears. Devil Speak talked about the teeth falling out. I've had lots of dreams about my teeth falling out, and sometimes in the recent week, like, all of my teeth are really like hurt, and I got shit teeth. This is what English teeth and smoking and drinking coffee and not going to the dentist is all about. But that, to me, the earwax thing, like, it really, really frightened me. And not much does frighten me. Heights will, if you really want to get me fucking on my knees and powerless, heights will do it. But I was like, kind of, do I need to fucking get rid of this right now? Sorry, what's that? Wait till you hear my story about finding out I was being targeted a long time, but when I go live, I will tell it. It's a shame I haven't got money on my phone right now. I do want to get that topped up maybe tomorrow, and hopefully this week I will be able to get your nutsack out, fatty. And I think Angela, although we haven't seen her for a while, I've got a couple of nutsacks to send out, but I will get around to that, and I will get my phone topped up, because I want to get Fatty, of all people, on the show about this, because we have sort of similar kind of content with regard to the electromagnetic frequency, and similar symptoms in terms of what she's talking about as being a targeted individual. Now, during those lockdown protests, they got to the point where I sort of they started playing a lot of loud music there, if anyone who can cast their eyes back to what seems a lifetime ago in the summer times there. But they started playing very, very, very loud music and went a little bit like ravey. And in a couple of those times, I really kind of had this sensation, I don't want to be here, I'm uncomfortable, it's like, kind of when you're like that, you know exactly what I mean, hopefully, when I kind of, you don't feel right, and wanted to get away. And was that because they were emitting some kind of frequency through the speakers? I don't know, or cell phone towers, stuff like this. I don't know, but I had a sensation that I just didn't want to be there. And I also had a very interesting, I don't know if the admin crew can remember, do you remember when my old phone got hacked? And I went through a very weird little period of time during the early parts of those lockdown when my phone got hacked. I broke lots of bizarre things, and I kind of almost was back to sort of the very, very basic old burner phone that I was using, because I didn't have out of the two phones I did, only one of them half worked. A tribal frequency, and exactly that these kind of little things within movies, they kind of let us know what they're doing, and you can make a correlation to those movies. Oh my god, yeah, just like the movies, fiction prepares us for reality, as I have always said. So remember that my phone got hacked, so that was what I believed at the time. I had become some kind of targeted individual. Now, what if that they put into the program and our phones know that we're a targeted individual, and it's too much to, I can believe it. That's why I want to get you on the show, and maybe we can do a guest show or a collaboration or something, because you do have a lot of, and we've been talking a little bit back and forth on email about this subject, and you've got a lot of interesting stuff to say about this. But I do believe that I have experienced what is symptoms of EMF frequencies, and would it be a stretch, or would it sound ridiculous to suggest that possibly they could turn up the frequency enough to kill us? Or could they implant messages into, and this is something that Manchurian in Monarch, not Manchurian, MK Ultra in Monarch programming can do. It can program you that once you've carried out your purpose to whatever programming you were given, that you take yourself out, and that would be a wonderful way of depopulating people. There's no chain of suicides don't have a suspect. The Raven data collection, would like to hear your targeted incident, but I do believe that during that lockdown protest that I may have become a targeted individual. And some of you also may remember that when I was going live primarily on YouTube at the time, didn't matter how much signal I had, it was pixelated like 1996 type video camera quality. It was really, really, really bad quality, and I believe that this was again part of me being a targeted individual and part of passive censorship shadow banning, that if they make it is unvisual to look at, then people will be less inclined to watch. A little bit like if you make the audio unhearable, then people, I can't hear this, I'm just not going to watch it even though I want to, I just can't watch it because I can't hear it, and thus you've censored stuff. I can't. As I said, let me try and get my phone set up at some point this week, and we'll get Fatty on, because I would love, I'm kind of looking forward to a TSP TV Fatty but I can't say it. Why can't I say it? McButterpants. There we go. I got it out in the end. That was a little bit of a difficult one to spit out. But anyway, guys, trying to piece the pieces together and come up with this kind of theory that I'm presenting to you all now, and just by putting it out there, some of you guys have kind of contributed a little bit of more information. And again, what we're talking about, you and I were on the same wavelength. Maybe we are, and we've talked over the past about creating hive minds. In fact, one of the videos I put up in the very early days of the pandemic was what part of hive mind control don't you understand? Kali Ninja, my target incident was a car tried to run me off the road and had my home raided by the police. And that's very, very interesting. And another kind of reason, going back to grey man mentality, and maybe another reason why I'm not so prominent down there, that sometimes you don't want to draw attention to yourself, maybe by, and this is kind of a little bit again about kind of communist takeovers, that they will, the Chinese and the KGB had something called, no, they're not phones, they're little robots, devil speak, but what was I chatting about? But Lottie came to show some love. Thank you, Lottie. Love back at you, babe. What was I talking about? Sorry, I lost my strain of thought a bit now. That's right, red squads. So what the Communist Party that is taken over a country does is it implements controlled opposition, and what these controlled opposition do is they kind of fragment out the sort of dissident sort of parts of society and kind of coordinate them together by saying all the right things and kind of generating some kind of cult-like mentality, and then once these people come together and once the Communist Party finally does take over, all these dissidents that kind of were out protesting such forth were then round up and then disappear. And that was something that was also in the Years and Years BBC series, that sooner or later, once the sort of society went to shit, people started disappearing, and the people that started disappearing were people that questioned government. So again, when you become a targeted individual, you're in the system, and if you're in the system, you have something like a social insurance number or maybe a bank account, things like this, then you will be that much easier to track. If you're somebody that lives under a pseudonym, is an illegal immigrant in a foreign country, doesn't have a bank account, or any sort of paper chains and things like this, then you may be a little bit more difficult to target. But if you do carry around a smart technology, and for those of you who don't know, let me ask a question. Does anybody know, I have mentioned this before, but just in case you didn't pay attention, and for those who don't, does anybody know what SMART is an acronym for? It's not like smart because our technology is clever. Does anybody know what SMART is an acronym for? And believe it or not, it was originally weaponized for the military. It was a weapon system for the military, free government phones. How many stimulus? I didn't get any stimulus checks, Lottie. 000. The government doesn't know well, I mean, they probably do, but I'm not in any governmental systems. I had the NSA tracing my internet. You will feed up, drink one beer and relax. Well, I might go and have a little puff in a minute, but I'm probably going to wrap this up around the 1:30 mark, guys, which we're at 1 minute 10 at the minute. But I don't got any kind of government, I don't get anything for the government, and I've lived pretty much a grey life for over 10 years now. In fact, 12 years I've lived without any kind of documentation, bank accounts, nothing like that. And in 12 years I've amassed zero debt. But anyway, SMART. Nobody wants to give me a guess as what SMART means. No, SMART stands for Surveillance, Monitoring, Advanced Research Technology. Surveillance, Monitoring, Advanced Research Technology. It's designed to survey and monitor. So there you go. But as I said, guys, my phone was hacked back in the summer. I did smash both of those. One was destroyed in part of a very freak accident. The hacked phone I did smash up and break to pieces when I did finally get new phones to bring in. So yeah, devil speak. You've learned something. That is the educational part of tonight. Hopefully you guys now know what SMART technology means. It is surveillance, monitoring, advanced research technology. And what are they surveilling and monitoring? To research is your behavioral patterns, and then with those behavioral patterns that they've researched, they put them back into the sentient world simulation simulator, where they run scenarios and drills and all sorts of stuff in order to find out the best way to control us. And then if you can kind of create Manchurian mind control candidates via social media and mainstream media, in Hollywood entertainment, that are unsuspecting. And guys, when you see, and Fatty, please tell or agree with what I'm saying here, that once you see monarch programming for what it is, you can't unsee it. And it is everywhere, people. At the moment, it is everywhere. And something, again, what I've been talking about recently is the mimetic behavioral patterns of people and how that is spread over the COVIDian times. The more we've been sort of isolated from other people in our daily interactions, the more and more I see people are just sharing things on Facebook, all copied, copy and paste. I copied this from someone else, shared. And the other day on my TS Prepper thing, I put out a post. I challenged 10 of my friends to post 10 independent thoughts that they didn't copy, paste, or share. Nobody responded. I didn't even get one thumbs up. Now, I'm not out for thumbs up or reactions, but or to go viral or be popular, but sometimes you wonder as to why people don't want to react to things. And the reason being is because we've all become addicted or somehow dependent to dopamine, and dopamine is something that we get through our cell phones and social media. In fact, social media does model itself very much on casinos, and when you pull the handle and that's a little bit what you do when you go through your news feed. Oh no dopamine, let's try again. So you refresh your news feed and then you start again. Oh no, nothing this time. Then all of a sudden, oh look, there's something that's been shared by one of my friends and it's got 17,000 likes already, and it's been, if I share that, then I'm going to get a slice of that dopamine. You don't know you're doing this consciously, but your subconscious does, because you become dependent on it, just like addicts. Addicts' behavior patterns become irrational once they have succumbed to their addiction. Logic and rationality goes out of the window, and they do all sorts of things. That's why women are on their knees behind dumpsters for $10 worth of crack, giving blowjobs or whatever it is. This is why some people go crawling around on the floor to try and find maybe a lump of crack that they dropped, because they're addicted and the body needs it, and the body and the mind will need dopamine. We need, we get it from the sun, we get it from vitamin D, we get it from grounding, we get it from social interaction. This is why we feel good when we're out and about. But without that dopamine coming to us naturally, people who have been socially isolated are getting used to their dopamine via social media. And the more times they share things that already has a very high dopamine account to it, the more likely they are to share it. And the more they start sharing these things, the more the things they share and become their thoughts, and less their thoughts become their own. This is how they control minds. This is how they create. This is Manchurian MK Ultra at its purest, people, on mainstream media. And Faddy, help me out here. Let me see what that says. For example, walk into Walmart and I get dopey glazed up. Back to the 1980s in the feature Back to 11 Together in Electric Dreams. Even Stranger Things season 3 pointed out shopping malls. Now, shopping malls are essentially a Faraday cage and a confined area. And thank you, Faddy, that's brilliant, because you just reminded me of that. When I go into a Walmart, now Best Buy in the United States is also a Faraday cage. If you go into a Best Buy, you won't be able to get on your cell phone data, and you won't be able to get any Wi-Fi signal other than Best Buy. And the reason they do this is because you then jump onto their Wi-Fi, you have to accept permissions which you're not going to read, and then they can control what you see, so you can't price check on any other products that were in their places, right? But shopping malls, I believe, were in, back to George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead movie in the 70s. This was inspired by him being at a shopping mall, watching the behavioral patterns of people within the mall, just kind of wondrously wandering around. Do you remember old school shopping mall music? Sometimes I listen to that and kind of just sit there like, no, fuck, what am I doing? Because I find it soothing. And that is because it was meant to. It put you into a trance-like state. And when you were in these stores, the smells, the visions, the lights, all of this stuff was mind control equipment. And it got you to kind of consume, spend money, be it the mall. Something, I told you guys before, but I grew up in the United Kingdom, but I'm almost American. I think like an American elevator music as well, you're right. And even before I ever set foot in the United States, I knew every brand at the shopping mall. I knew about candy bars, fast food items, all this stuff that existed in the United States that was never in the United Kingdom back then. And we were always like, wow, it must be so great to be in the States. I want to eat a Butterfinger. I want Twinkies. I want to try new Coke. Never ever come to the United Kingdom. And I also kind of grew up loving America. I don't know why, I don't know how, I'd never been there, but I loved America even without setting foot there. And the reason I believe that is because I spent an awful lot of time as a youngster engaged and involved and saturated with American pop culture, be it comic books, movies, or TV shows. And in particular, I had a VHS. I used to record all the movies, all the TV shows, and being a loner, no brothers and sisters, an only child, TV and VHS become my friends, I guess. And like, it sounds as lonely as it is, but that was company for me. And was the amount of time I spent in the 80s watching American, was that my programming? And when I eventually did get to the United States in my late 20s, I loved the shopping mall. My ex-wife back then, she couldn't get me to go to a store for love nor money. She wanted to go shopping. I'll be here, darling, just take the fucking credit cards. All the money I've got in my wallet, I don't want to come with you. Last thing I want to do is go shopping. I hate shopping. But when I was in the States, I could spend all day, every day in the shopping mall. Just loved it. Like, wow, shopping mall was great. Fucking could be here all day. And that was because, a little bit like in casinos in Vegas, that emit oxygen and kind of have all the sort of sounds and lights and stuff to kind of keep you hypnotized in from leaving. Same with the shopping mall. And shopping malls become very big and rose within the 80s, as did globalization. And what globalization wasn't about, kind of enterprise and free trade. It was about making the globe exactly the same. Because as I was saying, once upon a time, like, the Gap didn't exist in the United Kingdom. It wasn't there. You had to go to the United States to go to the Gap. And all of a sudden, the Gap's in England now. And it doesn't matter, I used to travel an awful lot as a teenager in the 80s. We used to get a student rail card where you could travel around Europe indefinitely. And when you went to France, there were French things. When you went to Germany, there were German things. When you went to Italy, there were Italian things. But now when you go to any of these places, there's a Starbucks, there's a Gap, there's a Sephora, all a Starbucks, a McDonald's, a KFC, and all of these big kind of chains are part of the globalization, are all part of the big militarized industrial complex. And if you remember Breaking Bad, it was Gus Fring's El Pollo Loco thing that actually was the front for clandestine black market activities in the guise of methamphetamine distribution and sales. So uses VLF. Germany, but Blue Beam is from the missile crisis. Well, Blue Beam is, and this is what I'm kind of saying, that part of Blue Beam is all about kind of using holographic technology. That might have been Blue Book actually, or there was a Bluebird devil speak, because there was Blue Book, Blue Beam, and Bluebird all kind of come out at the similar time after Paperclip, and a lot of this was as a result of MK Ultra Monarch experimentation. But Blue Beam is to use electronic magnetic frequencies that will change the mind, voice of God technology, as well as using holographic technology to kind of make us think that we are seeing an augmented reality, which we are kind of living in right now with what they've been telling us for the last 8 months about the pandemic, which is very Orwellian from 1984. There was a never-ending war that they kept broadcasting and speaking about on the news, but there actually wasn't a war going on. People just were Blue Book was, I think, the look into UFOs. You're correct, and that come in and out and about in the 1950s, and again 1955, the 50s. This is all after Paperclip, electronic magnetic frequencies, Nazi technology, maybe using sort of rocket ships and stuff that were, and this is the sort of technology that is unknown, could almost seem alien or magical, right? Imagine back in 1985 if somebody showed us an iPhone, we'd be like, oh, no fucking way. Right? So advanced technology, I believe, was being used, and Blue Book was kind of part of the UFO investigation, and was this the seed planting for the greater picture of Blue Beam? And Blue Beam is something that I have also been covering an awful lot about over the summer, and something I've also been sort of a bit of a keynote, had an observation and looked at for quite some years. And again, The Watchmen, my favorite comic book, depicts a Project Blue Beam staged false flag event using an alien and psychic electromagnetic frequency wavelength weaponry that killed 3 million people on the 2nd of November, which is actually today, guys. So as I said, let's hope we can get to midnight without having our brains fried by a false flag special effects alien being dropped in there. But Blue Book, was about aliens. Now, I can't actually remember what Bluebird was, but Bluebird was something to do with Monarch and MK Ultra and possibly frequencies and possibly something that was going on at Montauk. We'll have to look more into that, guys, but I have been down a very, very deep rabbit hole with all of this lately, and there are an awful lot of connections and links and things that are suddenly becoming very, very apparent to me, and why I want to kind of share this stuff with you. Oh, bless you, putting the Monarch butterflies. Or are you trying to control us, Nancy? Are you a secret black operative CIA agent that has been implanted to the TSP thrift store community to mind control us with your emojis? I'm joking with you, darling, but who knows? You would be the prime candidate to be a secret black op, the last person we would expect. I can't poke. What are you talking about? An app in the Canary. There's actually quite a few bizarre mind control apps on Arcadian Agent. Brilliant. Arcadian Agent. That kind of rhymes a little bit. But there is actually an app, a mind control app, that it tells you take off your glasses and hat and stare into the camera, and the phone will read your mind. I don't want to fucking download it and try it out for the life of me, but there is not only one, but there are a few apps on the App Store that you can download. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, as they say. But as I said, guys, over the summer, Project Bluebeam, maybe, and this is where I was sort of going to this, that we are already being blue beamed, and it may not be a case of when blue beam's going to happen, but when did it begin? But anyway, guys, we're getting very, very, very close to the 1 hour 25 minute mark there, and indeed, you know what I'm saying. I got your message loud and clear. Don't get me started about UFOs. I saw them regular basis. I want to get you started again about UFOs. This is what I want from you guys. I want to get that thirst. I want to get that hunger. I want to poke the sparks. Get that mind thinking. Share your UFO stuff, Martha. If you want to come on one day this week or at another time, we'll get you on as a guest. Tell us all about your UFOs. Because it was kind of a little bit UFOs that kind of got me into conspiracies in the very first day. In particular, E.T., the movie E.T. and The Close Encounters, both Spielberg movies. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pieces of cinematic art there. But it was both of these movies at a very young age that sort of alerted me to conspiracies. And as I sort of got a little bit older, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, stuff like that, cover-ups, were very interested to me as a teenager, as well as comic books, science fiction, fantasy movies of the time. But as I kind of got a little bit older, I got interested in things like JFK. I got interested in sort of Waco, very, very, very big in Waco. The Oklahoma City bombing, that was another thing that, like, whoa, there. And it was sort of around the early 90s, 1991, 1992, that I become awoke, in the sense that suddenly things that I thought and had theories and thoughts of my own, like when I left school, like, fuck me, there's like some kind of system in place, just controlling us from being free, but couldn't really understand it or really, in, you know, back then when there wasn't really internet and Google and any of this stuff to really help you out with searching. I mean, now it's a bliss, but back then, you know, you had to go to libraries and sort of maybe, and believe it or believe it not, my comic book store and the guy that worked at the comic book store, which is a little bit kind of what the thrift store, or what I've tried to kind of implement into the thrift store prepper channel, you know, that sometimes these little comic book stores or the video store or the maybe even the thrift store, there might be somebody that works there that's a little bit clued up. And it was my local comic book store that kind of did give me a little bit of information towards governmental goings on. But it was in the early 90s that there was a project in my town, was used as a little pilot town for some of these projects. And we had this thing called Mondex, and the catchphrase was, Mondex is cash, cash is Mondex. Chip and pin, cardless, cashless society, demonstration, experimentation. What's up, honks? Good to see you. I don't know why I did that. I was trying to be NSYNC or Boyzone or whatever, one of those sort of 90s style boy band things. But Mondex, they had a few stores within my town, and the idea was that you'd go there and you'd give them like £100. Here's £100 Mondex, and then they'd charge you £5 to put that £100 onto a card that you could then go around town and chip and pin, like we do now. Nobody puts their hand in their wallet and gets cash out, even if you go to the Tim Hortons to buy $1 coffee, chip and pin, chip and pin. But back in 1992, we were like stood outside this store in my local town centre, and the reason I stood outside it because it's across the store from the record place. We just went in, looked for some records, come out. There was a grand opening. They were giving out hats and balloons, and if you signed up that day, they give you a free £15 balance on your Mondex card. But there were some anarchist, anti-globalist types there protesting, and there was one of these individuals that approached me with a book and a video, and that video was a very, very, very copied, pirated version of Bill Cooper's Pale Horse book, which was my wake-up call. And the book was all about the New World Order, the cashless society, all the things that they are sort of implementing and want to do in order to gain a one world order. And that was in 1992. So I've been kind of awoke since then. And the thing is, in the last 20 years since the start of the 21st century, I've started to see almost a lot of those things that I read in that book from the 1990s. It was, again, sort of regurgitated from the 80s. In the 70s, and it was hard to get that information then, but that book kind of started me on the path that I eventually went down, in what made me anti-establishment, and kind of, as I said, fueled my mind and curiosity for the greater knowledge and the greater understanding, and as I said, stuff that I seen then, I've seen come to be, and now is just part and parcel of normal life. It's happened, just like the globalization. And this is why, you know, all these big franchises are now all around the world. It doesn't matter what city or what country you're on, there's going to be a certain amount of similarities to you. And this is what the one world this is what globalization was making the globe exactly the same. But let's go back a couple of comments there. We had a huge triangle hover over my house. Was this recently? Sorry, I need something to drink. I should really always bring something to drink. I've been talking so much, I've got like that dry cotton mouth things go on there. Hello, Hislam. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Fatty. We're getting a lot of things blocked tonight, Fatty, but we try to let as much go as we can. And a little while ago, we had a very, very, very bizarre, loud noise going on overhead in the middle of the night, and I was absolutely petrified. Like, sometimes if there's thunder and lightning, I go and have a little look out, so I like thunder and lightning. But this noise, my goodness, we're up to nearly 17 people. When did that happen? My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. Wow. Crazy, crazy. We could go on a little bit longer if you want. Would anyone object if I did go and get something to drink and maybe took a very quick, short comfort break? Does anybody mind? Can you hear me out there? Anyway, I'm going to do it whether you say I can or not. What can I do for you? I was going to see if I could... Hang on. Let me get that mind control video for you if I can. Bear with me, guys. Oh shit, I haven't got it here. I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll give you this to watch. I'll be back. I just realised I didn't add. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't. I lined up a video to play, but then forgot to press play. So you were supposed to be having a little bit of music there. So hopefully you didn't hear me tinkling too much. Devil speaks. Sonic booms are being reported. Where are they being reported? Let's get on this fucking case and see. Sonic boom, because guys, I've been telling you that we might be getting ourselves a false flag alien event tonight. Watchmen, November the 2nd. It's better that I've had some water now. Sonic booms. Okay, I'm looking it up right now. Sonic. Fuck. And shall I tell you something else I've noticed? Like, you know, predictive text. How many of you noticed that it doesn't seem to predict anything you want to say? And partly, I think this is an annoyance to make you angry, get you in a bit of an aggravated mind. Sonic booms. Baby P. That's one, right? So I've lost a little bit of track of some of the comments there. Okay, this is interesting. I'm not finding anything about sonic booms right now, but 22 hours ago in Australia, remember I've been talking about asteroids and UFO evasions? Don't know if you can see that. It is going to be back to front. It says asteroid fireball over Perth's eastern suburbs sounded like a meth lab blew up. Sounded like a meth lab. There it is. Don't know if you can see that. It is back to front. I do know. If 99% of you can read this, then can I get an amen? Sorry, I'm trying to talk like... And this is the thing, guys. This is what they use as your mind control tactics and sort of clickbait appeal. 99% of you won't share this, but the 1% that you do, you're super intelligent. So you think, I want to be in the 1% that's super intelligent. I'll share. You're not. You're just a sheep following a command. This is what MK Manchurian programming does. Gets you to command to programming in responses. But sorry, what were we saying? Sonic, where was, not Sonic, Devil Speak. Where are you hearing about these sonic booms, my friend? It's a little cloudy, but some good footage of the moon. Yeah, I got some, sorry, I was a little bit close to the camera then. So we've gone over the 1 minute, hour 30 mark, which means we're either going to wrap this up at 1:45, which probably at that point we'll get a gusset girl pop in, which might see us going on till the 2 hour marks. I don't know. I can't remember where it is here in the US. All right, so let's just put Sonic Boom in. I tried to like doing a little bit of live reporting. Okay, I got something. Sonic Boom, military flyovers breach piece of Adrenax. That's what I got up. And again, it's back to front. Sorry about that. There are people in flying things that aren't airplanes, and they are telepathic. Shroon Lake. Does anybody know where Shroon Lake is? Don't know if you can see it. Shroon, not shroom as in mushrooms. The Adrenax, a place one can find some peace and quiet, interrupted only by murmuring pines and babbling brooks, and the occasional sonic boom. Sonic booms, as well as high-speed, low-elevation overflights by military jets, has become the latest rhetorical and policy battleground in the Adirondack Forest Preserve, which covers most of near to me, northern New York. Northern New York's just 30 miles over there. Okay, Prepper Chick, go enjoy your cooking and look at my weird eyes. And your supper there. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you enjoyed this stream. But this is interesting. So This just come out a few hours ago. Fighter planes, which are mostly from Barnes Air National Guard, base in western Massachusetts, have drawn scrutiny from residents. Interesting stuff. But that's not saying that there's a sonic boom been heard today. There's another Western Australia about the sonic boom in the Fireball in the last 4 hours. Fighter jets, that's from 4 days ago, 6 days ago. Oh my goodness. 1981, what was your favorite 80s move? This is what we're talking about, how they listen. We've been talking about 80s and boom boxes and Walkmans, and they just put up a little article there in order to try and get me to click on it. That's how the algorithm works, people. They created a little, listen, he's been talking about Walkmans and 80s. Let's ask him what his favorite device was. He's going to click on it. Monta Ellis donates 4 days ago, someone donates to a sonic boom. That's the only one that I'm getting from today. Hislam, Devil Speak, Groom Lake, no. What's it called? Shroon Lake. I do know it is back to front, guys. My apologies for that. The Philadelphia incident. Yeah, there was the Philadelphia. Was that the one where the boat went into another dimension, and then when it come back, people were like stuck, immersed in the walls. What the sonic booms? It doesn't say it happened today. It just said it's been an ongoing thing over the last few weeks, that they've had more and more. Please note that there are several homes and national historic landmarks in that area, including Great Camp Sagamore and Camp Unicus. I don't know if that's military camps or something, or maybe like national park guards, but I've been getting complaints all summer long, said a local resident, and that they've been frightened by the sounds, that they thought their house was going to fall down. And that's a little bit interesting, because that is a little bit like the sound that I heard a few weeks or months ago. That was the Philadelphia experiment. All right. So I knew that was something along those lines. But yeah, as I said a little while ago, I had this big, huge, like middle of the night, woke me up, house was sort of shaking, and it was like a rumble that kind of kept going and going and going. It wasn't like sort of a clap of thunder. And I spoke to it about my neighbour the day after. He sort of popped out while I was having a smoke and a cup of coffee, and I said, "Did you hear that thunder last night?" He said, "Oh my God, I didn't identify. That's like no thunder I ever heard. I didn't even identify that as thunder." And he said, "I was almost too afraid to get out of my bed to look." And when he said that, I'm like, holy fucking shit! I literally was petrified like a small child. I had like this irrational fear, and as much as I wanted to look outside to see what was causing this noise, I just didn't want to, because I was too afraid to see, and it was almost irrational fear. But the latest incident, they said, was last Friday, which would have been, what was it, Monday now, 3 days ago, and it rattled somebody's window and scared their cat, wrote somebody on a Shroon Lake Facebook page. So SCHROON Lake, Shroon Lake. People have seen F-15 fighter jets over the area on Friday, although it was flying over 30,000 feet, which is the Federal Aviation Administration requires for supersonic travel. Aircraft need to travel even faster, or about 750 miles an hour, to break the sound barrier at that altitude, since the barrier is, this is interesting actually. Sorry, I'm just kind of scraping through it to see if anything of note points out. Crows and ravens eating ticks off animals has been suggested a lot lately. Hold on, I'll get Fatty's channel up for you guys that want to go sub. We're down to 15 folks now, and I've got a thumbs down. Thank you for the thumbs down, whoever that was. May you get raped internally in hell by diseased hobos with scabby dicks and cheese ejaculate. I hope that's what your eternity in hell is like, whoever it was that gave the thumbs down. And may your children fall into Epstein's Island. There you go. And that's what I think of you, Mr. Thumbs Down person. Although it might have been the algorithm, probably. What was I doing? Fatty's channel. Hold on, Fatty. Bear with me, darling. Excuse me if I'm... oh, there we are. Right, hold on. Here you go. Fatty's channel's coming up. Oh, fuck off. Stupid phone. Pressed the wrong button. Alright, there's Muck Butterpants. Why do I keep calling you weird things that your name isn't? But anyway. High Impact says even the thumb... Yeah, no, they do. They do help. But it's very funny. Baby P, you remember, you were here, and a few of us might have been there when it happened. We had 13 thumbs down, and I only had 6 people watching, so it's almost like the 6 people watching went and created a quick backup account just to give it an extra thumbs down. But midway through that thumbs down, that stream, sorry, the 13 thumbs down changed to 3. It was actually Baby P that noticed it. Gearing up for war with China. So what are we at now? 1 hour and 44. So I'm not going to quickly wrap this up in the next 45 seconds. We are going to probably go on a little bit to the 2 hour mark, and that's a good amount of time for you. Yeah, so you remember, so it does happen. Shadow ban. Do you want to see something else? So let me show you what shadow banning looks like, guys. I've already lost another one today. Hold on. Alright. Last 28 days. Every time I upload a video, look, and I lose a subscriber. So let me just kind of show you something here. So on Tuesday, the October the 6th, I don't know if you can see that, I gained 2 subscribers. Now, unbelievably, the day after, on Wednesday, October the 7th, I lost 2 subscribers. And then guess what happened this day? On the day after, on Thursday, October the 8th, I gained a subscriber. On Friday the 9th, I lost a subscriber. So every time I gain a subscriber, I lose a subscriber. But that's what my subscriber rate the last 28 days looks like. Nothing but unsubs. We can, although probably not today. As I said, we're going to start wrapping this show up now, but maybe we'll do another Bluebeam related live show in a day or two, because I did find another couple of interesting things to report on a Bluebeam. But yeah, that might be a good topic. I keep meaning to do an Alien Agenda Fiction Decoded special, to be quite honest, but we have dropped down to 12 people from 17, but that was good. We reached 17 people. We might even get another stream over 20 at some point, and as I said, you know, we did a little stream on Saturday night, which was the stream that I kind of brought you now, and I intended to give you on Saturday night, but we only had 4 folks watching, so rather than sort of have this lost and forgotten, I kind of wanted to bring it to you again. So hopefully those of you that have been paying attention, joined us tonight, some of this content has been of interest, or at least a little bit relevant, and from what I can gather from some of your feedback that I glanced at through tonight's stream, it does seem to be that we do have some support in similar occurrences. Sorry, funny though, you still have managed to get another from, you can buy, this is it, like I found a site that you can buy subscribers, Baby P. So a little while ago when they started I kind of managed to break through the 2,000 mark, and then almost immediately YouTube started removing them like that. So I found a website where for about $20 you can buy 1,000 subscribers. So every time YouTube does that, or when I was able to, you, then I put $20 in and got another 1,000. Like, fuck you, algorithm, take one away, I just buy another 1,000. So there you go. Now back up to 17, really? Okay, that's interesting. Gracious, you reached me. Thank you, Gracious48. I'm glad you did. Maybe come back, join us again for another TSP TV live stream. But as I said, guys, there's a lot more to me than just being able to show you how to put together a cheap pantry at your dollar store in a house, or ramen and cans of beans will suffice in an emergency. And although I would show you, but the lights are on out there, I still have a shitload of fucking preps left on top of my we got a little bit of a delay. I think we have dropped back down to 14, and again, is this kind of algorithmic behavior, Kali Ninja. My heart is purple and is tired, you all. Well, we are wrapping this up. Oh my god, link so I can go live. What do you want me to link, Fatty? Ask me. As I said, I am kind of wrapping this up. We've got 10 minutes to the 2 hour mark. We're just over 10 minutes to go. So let's, as I said, start wrapping this up. So I'm glad that some of this has hit home and has reached some people, especially some of the newbies. We do like getting new folks to the thrift store because we do feel as though we are kind of growing a little bit and attracting a few more like-minded folks. I wonder how my Patriot food supply, how long have you had it, Hislam? I mean, have you opened it up and tried it yet, or not? I mean, I think that's the sort of thing that it's good for 25 years until you open it, and then it might have a shorter shelf life. But it's peace of mind to have that. I mean, I think that my Patriot food supply, that's all freeze-dried stuff as far as I can gather. I'm not sure if or not it's not repackaged Mountain House. Oh, you need the link to I'll send it to you. Yes, I'll send it to you, Fatty. Definitely. But for $25, you can buy 1,000 subscribers. For $130, you can buy a monetization pack, which gives you all the minutes you need and 1,000 subscribers in order to monetize. But it takes place over about like 5 to 10 days. So every sort of day you get a few views and you get a few subscribers. But I'll send it to you, Fatty. Definitely, because if you can get over your 1,000, then you can start going live over your on your channel. Oh, I was going to buy some for my family back in the US. Well, the thing is with these I mean, they are good things. You know, I've never actually tried them. I mean, they seem good, and I have seen some good reviews on my Patriot supply, as well as hearing a couple of bad reviews about them. But in terms of Northwoods was something to do with 9/11 as well, and I do believe that 9/11 was a little bit blue beamed as well. Project subjects again for another day. But if you do have family back home, for the sort of price of maybe a couple of months worth of Patriot supply, because it is quite expensive by all accounts, you could put together a lot more food from your dollar store. And I've always told you guys that canned produce is the way to go. It has a very long shelf life, even though it has a best before on the can. It will have an expiration longer than that, way longer, in fact. So you might get about 4 or 5 years out of it. And for maybe $100, you could put together quite easily more than a month's worth of food at your dollar store. Northwoods was about invading Cuba. Yeah, but in the 9/11, they were talking about how to invade Cuba. They needed a reason to invade it, and I think Northwood, they spoke about using commercial airliners that they were going to either blow up or crash land and blame it on Cuban terrorists or sympathizers, if I can remember rightly. But yeah, and the Bay, something to do with the Bay of Pigs. Was it the Bay of Pigs? It went very wrong. But anyway, there you go. 8 minutes left, guys. before we reach the 2-hour mark. So thank you, Martha. She said it was been a great show. Do appreciate that. Yeah, so sorry, I'm not following along. I missed some of the comments, so excuse me if I didn't catch that devil speak. But yeah, I kind of do believe that that 9/11 was, and this is kind of what I'm saying. Like for many years, I've had an interest and a keen eye on Project Bluebeam, and always like, when's it going to happen? And it's sort of beginning to dawn on me that it's already happening. It's probably been going on for quite a many years. But anyway. We are going to start wrapping this up there. I'm old enough to remember the truth. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We kind of are in a sort of age of augmentation where we don't really know what is true and what isn't. But Friday's got to go. A few people have got to go as well. So as I said, let's try and keep this within the 2 hours, and hopefully maybe whet your appetite a little bit for another show. We might do it again tomorrow, because I know Tuesday did used to be TSP TV Live Day before all the world changed and we did begin to live in this covidcon go augmented reality role play that we have been found ourselves in. I don't think it has anything to do, I mean, I don't know, but the sort of northwards and the planes using the aircraft to crash, and the fact that they kind of then used airplanes within 9/11, so sort of that was kind of where the seeding for possibly that false flag event was. But maybe sort of during the Cuban crisis, they didn't have the holographic technology, and maybe the directed energy weaponry wasn't perfected enough in order to carry it out, so they needed to sort of wait until they did, and then the dawn of the 21st century was when it was ripe to run. But anyway, research, what are you talking about, devil speak? And you know, simmer down there, Sparky. No one's kind of in competition for anything, because I have researched an awful lot of stuff. If you were around last year, I put over 20 hours of information up on September the 11th, and a lot of that was information that nobody really know. But yeah, we'll be glad. You know, we'd like to sort of share thoughts and opinion. That's kind of why we go out there, because we kind of like to you know, how we gain a greater understanding is by sharing information and thoughts and theories and stuff like that. Submarines were used to Project Mother Mary over Cuba. Yeah, it was a very that was when they sort of kind of the fear, and they were telling kids in school about the duck and cover and air raid sirens, and it was very because Cuba's not that far off of the coast of Florida. Although I have looked at it, I haven't sort of kind of studied the lengths that I have studied some subjects, and that's what I'm saying, you can't sort of study everything at great depth, great length. Popeye, was that something to do with Vietnam? That's why I'm beginning to think that Project Bluebeam back then, in sort of the aftermath of paperclip, in sort of the dawn of the 1950s, when UFO sightings started to become very, very sort of more prominent than they had done before, was this all part and parcel of the big thing, same thing, and weather warfare? Definitely. And if you can weaponize the weather, then what good are AR-15s, right? So there you go. Anyway, guy, Popeye cloud seeding. Harp. Yeah, look at this. Okay, guys, maybe let's all write this stuff down. We can look into this and bring that for another day. And this is good. This is kind of what I like. Get a little bit of collective information in project work. And I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm starting to lose a little bit of my train of thought as we are getting close to this. But yes, weather modification, all of this stuff is it's technology that is readily available, and governments have spent an awful lot of money in, and why would they spend all that money in it if they weren't really going to be using it on us? And that's exactly right, Callie. He who controls the weather controls the world, and he who can control the weather can play God, so to speak. Thank you, Devil Speak. Glad that you joined in there. And again, sorry guys if I don't kind of follow everything you're saying, if you do repeat yourself. As I said, sometimes when I do get into a little bit of role, I try to put the blinkers on so I don't get too distracted. But I do like working and collaborating and putting it all together. I don't like it to be all about me talking and preaching, and I do like it when we can kind of work as a collective for the greater good, in the thirst of knowledge and the hunger for understanding. Guys, thank you. You've been a great audience tonight for each and every one, and it's always a pleasure when we see some of the newbies returning and becoming part of the Thrift Fam. So that is absolutely awesome that we had a bunch of new guys in tonight, and that some of what I had to say did reach some of you guys watching, because as I said guys, I do like to think that I'm not talking a lot of hot air, and some of you do pay a little bit of attention to what I said rather than the sound of how I say it. So let me do a couple of little things that I need to do. Where is it? Yeah, there's my little intro that we're going to be playing out with very shortly. And thank you Baby P for doing that. If anybody does want to chuck a buck or two in the tip jar, because this is my job nowadays, although it is mostly voluntary, a couple of bucks that I do make from the kindness of my viewers that put some tips in the PayPal jar are pretty much my only and source of income at the moment. So there you go. It is muchly appreciated, but don't feel obligated. This is available free for your enjoyment or entertainment or education, whatever you choose. So we've got 30 seconds left, guys. Thanks for watching. It is TSP TV. It was a shit video production. This was Monday the 2nd of November 2020. We will catch you in another one. Until then, keep it thrifty. Remember guys, always be excellent to each other.